My husband and I have not had sex for 5 years. Does no sex equal divorce? Should I stay or should I go?
I'm Amanda Silver.
And I'm Alex Howard.
And this is Dirty Laundry.
We are jumping right in today because there's so much to talk about. This question of do I stay or do I go comes up so frequently.
Yes, we hear it every day in our practice. It's
Every
not
day.
just people who've made the decision already.
No.
It's people who are struggling with the decision.
And we have had a ton of listeners write in with these questions. So today's episode, it's just Amanda and I.
Yeah, just
Our
us.
favorite place to be, with you all talking about the decision to leave your marriage, your long-term relationship, whatever that looks like to you, because it is a major decision.
It is a major decision, and it's not one to be taken lightly. And
No.
it's sometimes one that you need help with outside of the family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, family's not objective.
No, you need an unbiased perspective
And so,
and a professional one.
exactly.
And that's why we're here.
So hopefully we can, help you today with some of your questions.
Yeah. Recently, I've been working on a file with a couple that came to me for
Yeah.
mediation. They wanted to prepare a parenting agreement, go through the whole 9. 2 sessions in, we're working on reconciliation.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
you
It
just
does
never
happen.
know.
It
You
does
never know.
happen.
Those are few and far between. I do find most people, once they come to us, they know for sure. But leading up to coming to us, there really is a lot of wondering, of insecurity, of unsuredness. I'm making up words now, but it's like that. I'm not clear on how to make this decision when there's so many more people involved,
Yes.
right? Like if you've got children, you're obviously factoring them in. And so it's not just breaking up with your,
Your
boyfriend
and then moving
when
on.
you're 20 and you have no
Mhm.
property together and no kids together.
There's so much
and
at stake when you are in a long-term committed relationship and there's kids involved. And it's a lonely place to be in for a lot of
Mhm.
people who've reached out to us, to be in that place where you maybe don't want to confide in family members or friends.
Yep.
And you're just sort of in limbo.
Limbo, it's such a good word.
Yeah.
It's almost like a purgatory of I don't know what. And like analysis paralysis, right? You've weighed
Yeah.
out all of these things. You've written out to-do lists or pros and con lists, and you come back to the same spot of I still don't know what to do.
Yeah,
I'm
and then-
still paralyzed.
And then things get better for some time.
Mhm.
And then you're like, okay, I can
Yeah.
stay. This is improving. And then it goes back to the problems come back.
You fall into your natural
into-
routines.
yes.
And yeah.
So,
So let's address this one.
okay.
No sex for 5 years. Listen, not uncommon.
Not uncommon. And I do hear it a lot at the point of we've already separated.
Yes.
Because I think people don't want to admit it until after they've separated.
So I think you and I are in 2 different camps in
Okay.
for this question.
Yeah.
And this is why it's great because you're going to get 2 different perspectives. We're probably going to get into a little bit of a dance going
Yeah.
back and forth about our thoughts on this. Because for me, personally, I don't think that is a determining factor of your marriage is over.
Okay.
I believe that is a determining factor of you need to have an open and honest conversation with your partner.
Mhm.
But I think if you're able to block out a lot of the external noise, we all have this feeling of like, oh, I should be having sex more. What are my friends doing? We're asking girlfriends, how many times are you and your husband or your partner having sex? Oh, 3 times a week. Oh my God, I'm only doing it once. Something's wrong with me or
Right.
something's wrong with my relationship. So I think I'm so pleased, obviously, this person wrote in because this is a common question.
Mhm.
But I think this is an answer or a question really that can only be answered by the 2 of you in your relationship. Because why aren't you having sex?
Right.
And do you actually need to have that much sex? I'm not suggesting that there should be no intimacy or there should be no touch or connection of some kind, but sex goes in waves, right? Like that the drive, the attraction, it's so dependent on life experience, like what's happening at that time. And so I don't think it is as sort of binary of do I stay or do I go because of a lack of sex. I
Right.
think let's have a conversation with the other half about what their needs are. Like, are there needs that are not being met? Are you wanting to have sex more, but the other, your other partner, your other person doesn't want
Right.
it? Like, or are you not feeling it and therefore you're not instigating and trying to have more sex? Like, what is the impetus behind the lack of sex?
So I don't disagree with you. I think it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but I do think it's sort of a symptom of maybe a larger issue and it does need to be explored. So I don't mean, okay, someone's having sex once a week versus 3 times a week because everyone's different. Everyone has different things going on in their lives, different needs, different desires, etc. But I think if there's no physical intimacy for years and years and years, you're sleeping in separate bedrooms, I think there's a problem there.
Agreed.
And that needs to be explored. And if one partner wants to do the work and wants to explore and the other one doesn't, it's not great. It's not great for the future health of the relationship.
Yeah. I think almost as a blanketed statement, if one partner wants to do the work and the other doesn't,
For anything.
for any category,
issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the problem.
That's a big, right. That will help make the decision. If one
Yes.
person wants to do the work, and we've had guests on, real life guests, we've talked about, other people who've had these experiences. If one person wants to do the work and one person is not willing to,
Yeah.
I think the do you stay or do you go question is already answered for you.
Yes. Which, I mean, we haven't really delved too deep into this, but we've had another very common question, which is one partner has asked the other to go to couples counseling.
Yes.
And what's that response? So often it's, oh, is that a precursor? Is this just step one into getting a divorce? Like,
Right.
obviously there's something wrong. Why else are we asking for help? Well, sure, there's clearly an issue. Otherwise, maybe there is no need for counseling. But at the end of the day, that again is not does not necessitate divorce, but it does speak volumes if the other person says no.
Yeah. I don't think it's a sign that that a divorce is coming.
Yeah.
I think maybe, almost every couple should have some experience with couples counseling. It's not a bad thing.
It's definitely not a bad thing.
Someone who's a mental health professional, someone who's a relationship professional, to be able to objectively weigh in on some
Yeah.
of the issues that you're experiencing, because no relationship is perfect.
Yeah.
And if one person wants to have some counseling, it means that they want to do the work, not that they, want to leave.
Well, that's the
It's
thing.
when they don't want to do the counseling.
Exactly.
That's a go situation.
If you know you have issues and instead of asking for help or addressing those problems, you ignore them, to me, that says you're headed for divorce.
But I do think a lot of people are afraid to go into couples counseling because
Stigma.
Yeah.
Gotta love that big S word.
they just think that means the relationship is headed down the drain.
So
It
we're here
doesn't.
to debunk that.
Yes.
It does not. It means the opposite. It
And
means someone is trying their hardest to make it work.
And it doesn't mean that you have to be in counseling forever.
No.
Maybe you just need a few sessions with someone
Yeah.
like Martin Frith
Yeah.
or, one of our other relationship experts, and just to sort of reset and help you understand the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're, have to go for weekly sessions.
We really have a tendency in relationships to kind of fall into these patterns. We take each other for granted. We kind of assume that they'll always be there, so we don't maybe prioritize. And again, life, right? If you've got a busy work schedule, if you've got kids or what have you, I feel like right now our generation is this kind of sandwich generation whereby we're taking care of kids and our
Yeah.
aging parents. And, the tank is running on empty and it's exhausting. But if we don't prioritize our relationships, which we often don't, again, because we take them for granted, there is this tendency to just like sweep things under the rug, let things slide. And then before you know it, years have gone by and you are at this crossroads where you're like, well, this relationship sucks because all of that fun and all of that chemistry we had when we first started dating
That's dissipated.
has dissipated into like just regular life, kind of humdrum.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's the humdrum where the magic is, right? That's in that kind of boring routine and just that day-to-day,
But not everybody sees it that way.
but not everybody does.
Some people need the excitement. They need the passion. And if it's not there, they go look for it elsewhere.
Yes. And that's where we get into this. Why are you not talking to your partner about what you need?
Right. So if you haven't had sex for 3 months, rather than say, oh, well, I guess that's it, talk to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Have a discussion.
And listen, maybe you didn't catch it at 3 months.
Right.
Maybe you didn't catch it at 4.5 years. But
Years.
here you are at 5 years.
Yeah.
You're catching it now.
Yeah.
That's still great. That still gives opportunity for reconnection, for like building back of that foundation where you did have that love and that attraction.
It was there.
It was
right?
there.
There was a time where you and your partner were madly in love and wanted to be with each other all the
Yeah.
time. And, we're best friends. And if some of that has dissipated, it doesn't mean that it's gone forever.
Yeah.
I think there are deal breakers that do seal, that. But there's a lot of work that can be done to save a relationship.
Yeah.
And so we always talk about, do people, stay too long or leave too soon? And that's sort of part of it too.
Yeah. And I like that you're bringing up deal breakers, because I think every single person, and again, it's so individualistic, but every single person has
their line in the
deal
sand.
breakers. Yeah, they're non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And so I think a really good exercise is to individually come up with those, and then maybe have a conversation with your partner about what theirs are, and kind of do a work back plan of like, okay, if those are yours, and maybe neither of you have no sex for 5 years on your list of deal breakers.
Right.
Well, then great. Off we go. Maybe we get some therapy, or maybe we, get some toys or a book and start to explore, different ways of,
Meet with Lara Thomas
reconnecting.
And exactly.
Get an expert, whatever you need, grab the tools to really, get back on that horse, so to speak. But it doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
It doesn't have to be. Right.
But everybody has them.
So one of our listeners wrote in about the issue of infidelity.
Yeah.
And he wrote, "My wife had an affair with her colleague. I hate that she has to work with him every single day, and it boils my blood that they are still in touch. Is this something that we can work through, or does affair equal divorce?"
Such a great question.
Such a great
Such
question.
a common question.
And yes. And for some people, as soon as there's infidelity, physical infidelity, it's a deal breaker.
Yep.
That's it. There's no going back. The trust is broken. Marriage is over. For others, it's not so cut and dry. For this person who's written in, it seems like this is an ongoing issue that he has to deal with, which is that they work together.
That's a tough one.
That's a really, really tough one, because even if it was, let's say, a one-off, and
like a drunken holiday party,
well, not to
or
say
whatever.
that's okay, but there's different forms of infidelity. Like a long-standing deceptive affair is very different than, like you said, a one-off drunken event. So even if it was a one-off, these people still work together.
Yes.
So that's a conversation that they need to have. If they want to save their marriage, it might involve finding a new place of work. Like there might be some sacrifices that need to be made on the part of the person who, did it. Yeah, to show some, some
willingness to put the marriage first.
But again, then there's also the issue of trust going forward. I mean, some people say once a cheater, always a cheater. I mean, it's really personal, and it's really hard for anyone to make the decision for you.
And I think, like you were saying earlier, the not having sex is a sort of symptom of a bigger issue.
Right.
To me, the affair is the same thing, right? You're looking externally for something you're not getting internally. Some need is not being met.
Sometimes, yes, it is a symptom of something going wrong in the marriage or something that needs to be worked on in the marriage. But I think there's also a set of, individuals who have their own internal struggles and for whatever reason feel the need to, cheat on their spouse. And it's not necessarily reflective of their relationship, but maybe something that they're going through themselves.
So it's maybe a symptom of either the issues that are arising in the relationship or issues that are arising with the individual.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it always, listen, for me, everything always comes back to communication. So whether it's communicating even with yourself and being honest with yourself about what needs aren't being met in your marriage, and then communicating that with your partner of hey, I feel like you're choosing going out with friends more than you're choosing me. And so I'm now taking this step and I'm making an active choice for myself. And I'm going to go look for a relationship with somebody who does prioritize me or whatever that looks like, right? So is it an internal thing? Is it, an individual thing? Or is it a relationship thing? Listen, there's no one size fits all.
Right.
This is such an individual an individual concern. I just think that if you're being truly honest, there is something lacking. That's why you're going looking.
Right.
And so, yes, 100% I'm agreeing with you. It could be something personal.
Right.
But if it's something personal that's lacking in you, a need that's not being met in you individually, why are you not turning to your partner
Right.
to say, hey, here's this need I would like you to address. Here's this itch I need
Because
you
you have
to scratch.
have the metacognition to be able to do that.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot of self-awareness.
And self-awareness. And so not everybody has that.
Sure.
And that can be a problem too.
That's
so
a
if
big
you have
problem.
a partner who's not willing to accept that what they did was wrong, or who continues to hide.
Oh, I was thinking even pre the affair.
To have that, self-awareness before the affair happens, I think is very unusual.
Really?
Yeah,
I feel like I want
because there is so much infidelity. I know you do.
There is a lot.
And because it just the numbers speak for itself. I think there's so much infidelity. So people, I think they're acting on it and then being like, oh, why did I do that?
You know, it reminds me a bit of like the diet pill versus, healthy diet and exercise
It's
plan.
Proactive versus reactive.
Or not even. It's I want the fucking easy way out. And if I have this itch that needs scratching, I have to now gain all of this self-awareness. I now have to have conversations with my partner, or I can just go bone my guy at the office. Like that seems to me like the quick fix, kind of the easy way out. And maybe that's,
easy way out of the relationship. But
no, I don't think the easy way out of the relationship. I'm saying the easy way out of whatever that feeling is or whatever that need is that's not being met. It's a quick fix to go have somebody else meet it, as opposed to doing the work to either fill it on your own individual, like time and effort and work, or going to address that concern with your partner.
The interesting thing I find though in that point is that some of those people who take the easy fix, let's say, where they're like, instead of doing the work and communicating and admitting to what they've done, I'm just going to go fuck around, find a girlfriend or whatever. So I've heard a lot of, stories where like, okay, they've cheated, but then they do it again.
Yep.
Right? They don't make the changes. They just sort of,
I think that's where the self-awareness comes in.
They just do it again to their next partner.
And as you can see by our debate, it is not a clear-cut answer of
it's
do
not.
I stay or do I go?
And I feel bad for this person who wrote in, because it's a difficult position to be in. And that's why we're here to hopefully give some guidance and perspective and maybe connect you with other people who are in the same situation.
And I think, you talked about numbers, how frequently this is happening. And I think it's also really important to talk about what those numbers are of those folks that do make it work.
Yeah.
That do seek help, that do put the effort in to build back the trust that has been lost and continue with the relationship. So again, coming back to the deal breaker, is that a deal breaker for you? It's an individual decision.
Mm-hmm.
There is work that can be done. I believe that you can build back that trust. I believe that you can.
Do you think you can build back that trust for one-offs or for an ongoing affair?
Honestly,
what do you think?
Listen, I'm in a very privileged position whereby I've not had this personal experience. But I will say that breaking trust in other facets, you can build back. Because I think even if it's a pattern of behavior, so let's say it is a multiple affairs or a long-standing relationship outside of the marriage, if that person is willing to take the accountability, willing to admit that there was a reason and do the work and want to build it back.
Right.
So I think that there's almost two camps of like, one is, okay, I fucked up. I did this thing. I broke the trust. I really harmed the relationship, but it wasn't my intention to ruin the relationship.
Okay.
And then the other camp is, I did this. I'm miserable. I actually want out. I just don't want to have to like do the work to get out. Or I would sooner you be the bad guy, quote unquote, and break it off with me instead of me having to be the one that ended the relationship. So I like did this, dirty deed on the side so that you would pull the plug. And I say that from personal experience because I've often not wanted to break up with folks.
Yeah.
And so I've just been like real shitty until they break up with me.
It's like wanting to be fired at a job and not wanting to quit. But I think there's a third camp where they want their cake and eat it too.
For sure.
Where it's like, I want, my wife to be home with the kids and doing all those things and have put on a united front. But then I also want something on the side.
Well, I would say in that instance, probably my gut says that that's a go situation.
That's a go.
Like for me personally,
yes,
that's a go.
Yes, I agree. That's a go.
I think what you're saying is a go, and this other person who's just clearly doing it to get out of the relationship, an obvious go.
Right.
I think for the person who maybe just screwed up,
or
did this situation
Yeah.
had this external
there's
relationship.
hope for them.
I do.
Yeah.
I think there's hope if
they are willing to admit it,
Yes.
to put in the time.
it's the accountability
and-
piece.
Yeah, it's the accountability. And that's the truth for any relationship fuck up.
And I know this is where you and I disagree, but I think there also needs to be accountability on both sides.
I don't.
So what
I don't
that looks like.
completely disagree with that. I think every situation is unique, and I think
100%.
I think some situations are there's work to be done from both perspectives. I just also recognize that there are some situations where it's there is one person who is just
Perpetrator?
yeah, it's very I don't think it's always like one person's a bad guy and one person's innocent.
Yeah.
But I think there
It's
are
a sliding scale.
Yeah, I think there are some situations where you might have a situation where someone's a serial cheater.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter who they're with.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what the other person does.
Yeah.
That's just their personality for
And-
whatever reason.
And I think that in those instances, that to me almost slides into a category of like maybe some mental health stuff. Like I know
Yeah.
everyone throws around the word narcissist.
Yeah, everyone does.
But I think that there are some sort of personality traits
Yes.
that tend to lean towards that.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because there's certain personality traits that make it very difficult to stay in a relationship
Yes.
with someone. So
yes.
infidelity aside, often that does go with narcissism and all of that. But someone who has those traits cannot admit that they've done something wrong,
Exactly.
will not admit that they've done something wrong, will not do the work
Mm-hmm.
because they don't think that there's work to be done.
And you can't do the work if you don't take responsibility.
Right. So they might sort of like bandage it up by saying, yes,
Mhm.
I'll never do that again.
Sure.
And maybe go to a session or, say all the right things.
It's all
but then
performative.
it is performative.
Yeah.
And those personalities are very difficult
Yeah.
to get along with. And even in mediation, they're difficult to
We
mediate
see
with
that all the time.
because they don't think that they have a sense of entitlement.
yeah. Well, and then they're the perpetual victim.
They're always the victim. Nothing
yeah.
that they did was wrong. Well, I cheated, but
But it was their fault because they did X, Y, and Z.
and those
Yeah.
people, and they're so difficult to co-parent with.
Mhm.
And so in that situation, to me, it's very hard to be with one of those people. And
Yeah.
I think that would be a go.
Yeah.
That would be a go. But there are other mental health issues that maybe aren't a go. Like we had
Yeah.
someone write in about asking
Yeah.
about depression, and that's a very common one.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to read that
Yeah,
question?
please go ahead.
Okay. My husband struggles with depression. It comes and goes in waves. There are months that he's great and functioning, while others he can't get out of bed. I feel for him, of course, and have tried to be supportive, but our kids are getting older and it's beginning to affect them. Is it cruel if I leave him? Oy.
Ay, ay, ay. That's a tough one because
Yeah.
depression is sort of a silent, it's the silent, I don't know what to
So
call
you
it.
suffer in
but like,
silence, you mean?
yeah, people
Yeah.
don't always know when people
Yeah,
are
like,
suffering
okay, so,
with depression.
in this instance, it sounds like he's diagnosed.
Yes. And he's
right?
probably been on medication or has
Mhm.
been in and out of therapy and counseling. And I'm sure she's probably been, she or he, I can't, I don't know if it's who it
They.
is, but they, whatever, have been a part of it. But
Yeah.
it gets to a point where you want to spend the rest of your life, walking on eggshells or waiting for the
Mm.
next depressive episode to happen.
Yeah. Like I have a lot more
Or-
questions really before I could, I guess, answer
Right.
this, thoughtfully. Because really, how are the kids being affected? Because in many ways, their relationship is not going to sever with the dad because of his depressive episodes. He's still going to be their dad.
Right.
So they're still going to know and learn and live with
And still
his
have to deal with
depression.
it.
Exactly.
Even if you're separated or not,
Yeah.
they still have to deal
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
The question is, can you live with it?
This sounds like a them problem, not necessarily the kid's problem, but I, again, don't have enough information.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends. Depression can come in so many forms. It can come in, there could be some violence associated with it. There could be some self-harm. There's a lot of different things that can be involved. So again, that's something that you'd have to delve into a little bit
are
more.
the kids being affected in terms of seeing violent episodes
Right.
or episodes, where he's not getting out of
And
bed? That's really hard, obviously, on children. Of course,
Yeah.
on your partner as well when you can't get out of bed.
But should this person, because they have an illness, should this person stay? Like it's very different when someone's diagnosed, let's say, with cancer or something that's multiple sclerosis or something that is
Physical, you mean?
physical. But then someone here who is going to be suffering with this for the rest of their life.
Mhm.
does their partner have to suffer as well? And that's a tough one to be in.
On that same vein,
Mhm.
we had another person write in about a mental health question. I'm gonna read this one because this is a biggie.
Okay.
And this is not something I think anyone should take lightly, but is such an important question. My partner of 10 years was recently diagnosed with a fairly serious mental health issue. While I want to support him through this, we had always talked about having kids. And now I'm worried both for his ability to parent and also worried that it could be something he could pass down. Boy,
Yeah.
I still want to have kids, but do I want to have them with him? I don't know if I can stay in this relationship knowing kids are no longer in our future. Please help. What do I do?
So it seems like they've come to the realization that in order to stay in the relationship, they have to not have kids.
But just, coming back to this, many couples in that sort of initial courting honeymoon period don't really want to talk about the heavy stuff. They're so swept up in the romance and the fun of it. And then often you're so down the path where you're like, oh, we've been dating for 2 years. Oh, I'm now 30 or whatever magical number it is you've decided is the cutoff point. Now what?
Shit or get off the pot.
Right? But now I'm going to leave this relationship, which is good, to roll the dice, hopefully find another partner, spend enough time with them to build a relationship, to know that I want to have kids with this new person. Or, I don't know, the devil you know?
I think the assumption is that most people want kids.
Yeah, that's a good default.
And I think that's the assumption. So people just infer that. And then there are situations where some people don't, for whatever their reasons are. I think the majority of people do. So people who go into a relationship maybe don't think that that person's going to be one of the minorities.
Okay,
doesn't want
pushback.
kids.
I think, yes, historically, the default has been most people want kids.
Yeah.
I see that landscaping changing dramatically. A lot more people that are not wanting it, a lot more people that are realizing they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to sacrifice, their own lifestyle.
Or they don't want 3 kids. Maybe they want 1.
Sure.
Because that's all they can really manage.
And again, are you having that conversation?
Are you someone who's like, no, I must have 3 or 4 kids. This is this is a deal breaker for me.
So for me, that would have been deal breaker. Mom was the only thing I knew that I wanted to be in my life. I've had about 32 careers, but mom has always been at the forefront.
Yeah.
And so again, it's easy for me to say, well, that's, of course I want kids. Let's have them. Let's plan them, or let's, take it by chance, or whatever our sort of, family planning strategy was. But for folks that are on the fence, do you get swayed by a partner who doesn't want them or wants them?
And then is there resentment later on in life?
And then is that relationship going to withstand because you didn't necessarily want them?
I think if you and your partner are having the discussion about not having kids, I think that's a good time to meet with a counselor to really understand the implications of that, because it's a very permanent decision to make, because you can't just say and can't take it back, right? When you've decided, we're not going to have kids and that's okay for me. You have to make sure that it really is okay.
It's a really good point. Talk to someone.
Talk to someone, because the last thing you'd want to do is 20 years down the line really have that regret.
Have the regret, resent the partner.
Yeah, all the
now
things.
You're ending up in our office. We're going through mediation.
And
you
then,
still have to co-parent. You're still attached to this person forever.
There's no kids, so you've lost your chance to have kids, right?
Again,
you've given up that time, and you've given up your opportunity to have kids, and that's not something you want to regret.
So the kids versus no kids, massive debate. Again, maybe it needs to go on the deal breaker list.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely a deal breaker.
Now, what about
depression and mental health
or
issues?
just passing down whatever genetic
like a serious mental health.
Listen, whether it's mental health or physical health, if you find out, maybe you've been dating this person and you're both committed to a family, and then they get diagnosed with something.
Like a terminal illness?
Yeah, maybe it's like, what was Lou Gehrig's?
Oh,
right? Like maybe it's
ALS.
schizophrenia.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Maybe it's MS. Like whatever that is that can be genetically passed down to your children. How do you then reconcile with, this was our dream as a partnership to build a family, and now what? They often say that losing a child is, for many, the end of the relationship. They simply cannot maintain that relationship once they've lost their child.
Okay.
To me, this is losing that child. Like, you've lost that imaginary family, like that the life that you had dreamed up and you had talked about with your partner and you had picked out names or whatever. Like, you've gone down that road.
The dream is gone.
The dream is gone.
That's assuming that has come before the kids.
That's what we're talking about here.
Right, before the kids.
Sorry, I was just addressing your question, yeah.
Right, so that's assuming that before the kids, you're grieving the loss of what could have been.
And so, I mean, it's not the same as losing an actual child, obviously, but losing the dream of one could be enough to end that relationship, to sever that relationship, because how do you continue knowing that life that the two of you had built in your minds and in your hearts is gone?
It's also, how much of your own personal happiness do you want to sacrifice for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just only so much a person can do. And there's, yes, if, God forbid your partner is diagnosed with a terminal illness, stay with them and support them and, until the end, if it's, but
at the cost of things that you maybe wanted.
Maybe.
For your own life.
But this is a long-term sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not selfish or it's not unthinkable to say, you know what, I'm out.
Yep.
This is a mental health issue that's going to keep coming back. I'm going to have to deal with this my whole life. Similar to like addiction. Like, I think of like someone who's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
That's something that they deal with their entire lives. And it's always going to be there. It's always going to come back. It's always going to be a struggle. And some people are great. They're sober. They never, really is an issue again.
What do they say about addiction? It's like, while you're sober, they're just like doing push-ups. Like, your addiction is just doing push-ups, just ready, getting stronger and ready to come back with a vengeance. Yeah.
And that can also be genetic as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, alcoholism can be genetic.
Absolutely.
So that's something that like could be a deal breaker as well.
Again, it's a personal choice. So we have helped none of these people with their questions, but hopefully have raised a lot of points in terms of it has to be your decision.
We can't give you a yes or no answer.
You know
unless,
what? I was going to say, I have one caveat to
there's
that.
Unless it is,
I think abuse. For me, abuse is a no-no.
Agreed.
It's just, there's not even a debate.
Yeah. But hold on a second though. In that, there's emotional.
Oh, it's a blanketed statement for me.
Hold on, no, but what do you, like, anybody, find me a person, find me a couple that separates or is having trouble and doesn't say, oh, there was emotional abuse. And emotional abuse could be calling each other names. So there's such a range that it falls into.
I think because it happens with every new file I have, someone has put in something about abuse.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's what we're talking about. I think you're at the end of your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You're in end of your relationship. And people are looking for something to write in that, in my like intake form.
Yes.
And nothing happened is like, well, why are you getting divorced then? So they're almost like looking to put something in because, we just fell out of love. We just stopped connecting. I just am no longer interested in this person. Like, people feel now, you're going to judge me. That's what kind of shitty response is that to why I'm ending my marriage and putting my children in flux, right? So what am I going to sort of grab onto? And maybe I'm like being shitty and not giving folks the benefit of the doubt. But in my mind, it's like, here's this blank spot next to why is your marriage ending?
Right.
And you need to put something in.
Okay.
I think actual abuse, be it physical, be it emotional, be it financial, be it certainly sexual.
Yeah.
These are just all no's for me.
No's. I think financial is one that doesn't get discussed enough.
Ever.
Or ever.
I don't think it gets discussed ever.
People don't see what financial abuse really looks like and what it is. They just think that this is sort of par for the course, or no, I never really had an interest in the numbers, or they make excuses.
And can we just back up for 1 second, whereby when we're talking about abuse, we're talking about years of grooming.
Yeah.
So for this financial example, this is just our status quo. Well,
what else is going on?
What did it look like in the beginning?
Yeah.
When you had your own bank account and you had autonomy over your spending.
Yeah.
Versus after years of being with the same person and they've slowly, let's say, gained control. They've slowly monopolized and decided where the spending is going to be, what that landscape looks like. Because with any kind of abuse, it's not on your first date that your person
Right.
punches you.
Right.
No, it's slow and methodical grooming.
Yeah.
And I think we don't give that same power to financial abuse.
Yeah.
And especially we see this with women are like, oh, the man does it. Again, I'm making stereotypes, but he handles all of our bills and
Right.
I do the groceries and it's not like he tells me how much I can spend or what, like it's such a slow kind of clawing back of control. And to me, when it gets to that point where you pause and you say, oh, every time I spend, X amount of dollars on something that he or they deem frivolous, there's some kind of recourse.
Yes. If there's repercussions.
Even if that repercussion is just, oh my God, you're so bad with money. I can't believe you spent this much on something so dumb. Meanwhile, who the fuck knows what they're spending their money on because you're not in tune with that. So you have no, let's say, comeback of being like, well, you spent it on.
Because you don't know what they're spending. You don't
actually
access to
know.
it. Yeah.
So I think, yes, for me personally, this is, I'm only claiming this for myself. Abuse of any kind is just a no for me. And I really want to reassure everyone that not to feel bad if you get to that point, you're like, how did I not know? How did I not see
Often people don't see it until they're out of it. And then they see how other people treat them.
Right.
Or, like if you're
the point of comparison.
If your friends are treating you better than your spouse,
right,
there's a problem. Because you wouldn't accept that behavior from your friends. You would just not be friends with them anymore, right?
Yeah.
So there's an issue. And often, I've seen people who they don't even realize it. Then they're out of this, let's say, abusive relationship. And then they start dating again. And they're like, oh, wow. That's different.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, there's some respect there, or there's some concern there, and there's some, I'm not being called this name. Like these things, they sometimes don't realize it until they're out.
I think as women, again, this is just speaking from my perspective, but we make so many sacrifices and so many decisions for our children where we're really putting them first. And so I find if you're in a position, let's say as a woman, if you're a mom, and you're trying to understand what's happening and you're trying to sort of decide if there is any abuse and maybe, or even just a power imbalance, like let's dial it back a bit.
Yeah.
Power imbalance where you don't feel like you're, 100% able to voice anything and everything under the sun. Ask yourself, would I be okay if my child was in a relationship like this?
That's such a good one. That's such a good test.
Good benchmark.
There's always a no, but I always feel like, oh, but my kid would never be in that relationship, or I would never let them be in a relationship like I'm in. But like,
then why are you in it?
Then why are you in it? Like, you're showing your kids that it's acceptable to be treated this way or to treat someone this way.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. That's a big reason to get out.
Well, exactly. And I find if you can use that as a measuring stick, as a benchmark of, would I tolerate this for my children?
Right.
Then why am I tolerating this for myself?
I think that's a good one too. I think understanding those markers is a really great way to navigate this limbo.
And so setting up other kinds of like tests that you can implement in your relationship might be a way of kind of deciding for yourself, do I stay or do I go?
Yeah.
Right? Because again, as I keep harping on, it's such an individual determinant, but how do you determine if you're kind of just going in blindly, right? So having some kind of markers that you can rationally set up that even when you're in an emotional state, you can see, hang on just a minute, this doesn't feel right.
And that's where having a third party comes in.
Third parties, God bless them. Like, they have no stake in the game, right? They have no bias. They have no history of the relationship. So they're coming in not only with experience and education, but coming in with no bias.
I also think information is power, and information can help you make that choice. And what I mean by that is that I see a lot, like I'm on these Facebook groups, like these mom groups, and I see almost every day where, a mom will write in anonymously saying, I want to leave, but I have no money and I'm afraid. Or he says he'll take the kids. Like they're they're not aware of like what the process looks like, what their rights are, that just because you have no money and then they have all the money doesn't mean that you're not entitled to support and all those things.
Yeah.
And there's a fear there. So they're staying out of fear because they just don't know.
And I don't think it's 100% wrong if one party has way more money. Yes, you still have entitlements after divorce. But if they have bottomless pockets to fight the quote unquote good fight, what does that look like in reality? So it's, again, I don't think it's as black and white as we always want it to be. There are so many nuances and so many factors to consider. But I think setting yourself up for success in order to leave and say, yes, I've tried everything. I have exhausted all options. At least then you have the confidence to walk away saying, yeah, I gave it my all.
Yeah.
I fought for this relationship, for myself, for my kids, for my family, whatever. And it's still a no.
Yeah.
Or I implemented some of these strategies and guess what? Things are on the mend,
Yes,
and I was
things
able
are
to get
better.
over those hurdles.
Yeah.
Great, Godspeed. But what does that look like for you individually?
Yeah.
So one of the things I love, you know how much I love John Gottman.
Yes.
So they talked about, and he did extensive research, but being able to identify whether couples will last with 90% certainty.
Yeah, explain this to me.
It's wild.
Explain
It's wild.
this to me. So
because I want to leave our listeners on like a bit of a positive note, some homework.
Yeah.
You know, I love some good homework. Something to try at home. So bids for connection.
Okay.
This is like their main thing.
Okay.
So if you and I, Amanda, were in a relationship
Yes.
and we're both sitting here on the couch scrolling on our phone,
Okay.
and you say to me, oh my God, look at this funny video, this fucking dog video that I'm obsessed with. And I'm like, oh, hang on, I'm in the middle of doing something.
Okay.
You were offering me a bid to connect.
Uh-huh.
I ignored it. I was like,
Okay.
I see you, but I don't care. I'm more interested in what I'm doing.
Okay.
So according to the Gottmans,
Yeah.
it's these bids for connection, this attempt to draw you in, to connect with you in something I'm excited about, and you reject me.
Is that a full-on rejection though? What if it's like, I'm just finishing an email. Hold on.
Absolutely.
Click.
That is not
That's
not a
so
rejection.
funny. Ha ha ha.
Absolutely. That is
Right?
connecting.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm
communicating.
just in the middle of something, but I do want to
Absolutely.
see what you're.
Yeah, no one's expecting to drop everything the second your partner comes a run-in. But I think it's important. Are you rejecting them immediately? Are you just saying, yeah, hang on one sec, I'm in the middle of something? It's almost the same as what we do with our kids, right? Mom, look at me. Look at this
Like,
new
hold on.
walkover I can do. Well, hang on one second. I can't look at you 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So the same thing with our partners. What the Gottmans are saying is every time there's this bid for connection, you have an opportunity to strengthen your relationship or to weaken it.
Mm.
According to them, and the research don't lie, the data is usually there for a reason. The more the person starts feeling rejected by their bids, the less they bid, the less they put out this opportunity to connect.
And it erodes the relationship.
Exactly.
Slowly.
Exactly.
It's the little things.
The point of all of this is to say, again, leaving our sweet, darling listeners with a bit of homework is if you are in this precarious position, if maybe you're just, we answered some pretty major questions.
Those are major questions.
Those are big ones.
And some people are just feeling blah.
People are just like, I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not unhappy, but I'm definitely not happy. So maybe try this out. Try this at home. Do some bids for connection. Whether that's just like, if you come home at the end of the day, pause and just have a hug. Just say, hey, I had a really blah day. I just want to hug you.
Yeah.
Great. What does your partner do? Reject or connect? Like just do a couple of those little bids for connection.
Efforts, little bids, little tests and see what happens.
And see where that goes. Because I think it really is important to have, like I said, these markers or these sort of measuring sticks by which you can make concrete choices. Because a lot of it is just a feeling. I just feel unhappy.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily know why.
Right.
And I mean, this goes back to, I think, what we were saying earlier, which is do some fucking work. But aside from that,
sometimes you need to flesh it out with professionals or with other people who are in similar situations.
Exactly.
But if you're get a support network.
Yeah. If you're in this moment of blah and you don't really know if you could be happier on your own or if it's worth putting the work in, just try.
And that brings us to our support group.
Yes, I forgot all about it.
Yes.
So excited about my homework.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we are, we've encountered so many people who are all in these sort of like limbo situations. They're not sure. Do they stay? Do they go? So we want to provide you with some support.
Yes.
So we are putting together a dirty laundry support group for men, women, whomever want to come in.
Come in with your partner.
With your
Come in
partner,
alone.
a friend. It's even if it's not you going through the situation, maybe it's a sister or something like that, and you need the support. You want to, maybe meet with us one-on-one or in small groups, get some professionals in there. So we are going to be offering you all of that.
Yeah. So we're going to flesh that out and come back with some proper details about what exactly that's all going to entail.
Yes.
And that'll be launching in the new year.
Yes.
Something to look forward to. Get through the madness of the holidays and then focus back in on yourself and on your relationship and get some of your own personal questions answered. We're going to do some.
And maybe meet some people who are going through it as well.
Exactly.
Because often people do this in isolation or they don't want to talk to their like best friends or their family members about what they're going through. So maybe meeting someone else who's sort of on the fence or has gone through it or is going through it, that can really help.
Yeah. Because more often than not, you're not unique in your situation. And there's a lot of comfort in
other human beings. I mean, a lot of the questions we talked about today are experiences that a lot of people go through. It's not just, a one-off.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see you in our support group and we can answer some of your questions.
And as always, if you have questions, reach out. Thanks for listening.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Production. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening and go easy on us. We're not your ex.